10:01, good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. The Tennessee Titans report to training camp today at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. They will hit the practice field tomorrow. Head coach Brian Callahan and general manager Rand Carthon will meet with the media in a press conference beginning at 12:15. You can hear it live right here on The Zone. In NFL news, the Dolphins have signed veteran edge rusher Emmanuel Ogbah. Cameron Wolf of NFL Network reporting it is a one-year deal worth up to $5 million. And Jets defensive end Hassan Reddick is not planning to report to training camp today as he seeks a new contract. The Jets acquired Reddick in a trade with the Eagles this offseason. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. We have press conferences today. The Tennessee Titans are back in the building, having reported for the 2024 training camp. Not quite Christmas. Free agency feels more like that because you're about to unwrap a bunch of new presents, but this is up there as far as the football holidays go. It's first day back at school type of vibes before, you start to hate your math teacher or all kinds of other things that devolve before somebody makes fun of the 3-ring binder that you got or laughs at the idea that you got a LeBron James folder instead of a Michael Jordan folder, whatever the case might be.
Late show?
It is a top 5 Christmas morning feeling, right? That football is back. But heightened when actual game day comes around because then football is really, really back. And then you have free agency and March Madness. But this definitely has to be in the top 5.
I feel like I want to equate it more like Lent to Easter, right? If Easter is game day, then training camp is Lent, which feels like there's a little bit of suffering involved with it.
I was going to say, what do we have to give up for the next 40 days?
Well, we've given up football for a period of time, and now it's back in our lives, so we'll have to think of something else to give up throughout the course of this. 615-737-1045, the number if you want to jump in. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch is the method to get yourself involved in the F&M Bank chat if you want to live stream the show with us. And by the way, if you want to live stream the show, because we'll be out at training camp, so will the morning show, provided that the weather hold up. I'm going to be down there in some form or fashion, but we have to figure out the logistics. I've already phoned in a call to Kirby to make sure that we are prepared for weather-safe scenarios. Kent, by the way, on YouTube says his ET Trapper Keeper reigns supreme on the first day of school. So, if it's the first day of school, then what are the camp narratives that start to flesh themselves out over the course of the next couple of weeks? Not just here locally, because we talked about what a lot of training camp discussion is going to be centered around, at least in the preamble, right? We'll see how things develop, what comes to the forefront that we may not have been thinking about, what ends up being at the forefront the entire time. Among the different stories, players, people, personnel, coaches, all of it involved, all of it trying to work together towards a common goal. But league-wide, what are the biggest NFL training camp narratives now that basically everybody will have reported and practiced by Thursday afternoon? There's a couple of different ones that are Titans adjacent, if not directly tied to the Titans, because where would you rank them among, the most popular talking points or the most interesting talking points? Interesting versus important. Where would you rank them among the biggest storylines of the NFL offseason? Probably not at the highest.
No, there's not a lot of drama, a lot of new, which is very interesting. Sure. But what's the most dramatic training camp in the NFL this year? What will be the most dramatic training camp?
Oh, well.
Jets already have a holdout.
The Jets.
Hassan Reddick. Yep. And you got Aaron Rodgers talking about the mini camp absence. Well, but I don't know because...
No, I do.
No, there are some pretty big unresolved situations in Dallas.
Yeah, but
Jordan Love is not practicing in Green Bay.
until he does.
You're right. He's out there. He's
Literally standing on the sideline watching practice.
He's holding in. You're right. I guess it probably will be the Jets.
Inevitably, Rodgers is going to say something else, and something. It doesn't even have to be another player. It's just Aaron Rodgers. That is going to be the most dramatic NFL training camp. Now, you don't want a ton of drama. You'd like a little bit of roster competition, and this roster does have some competition, but probably the sexiest roster battle right now heading into training camp is right tackle. Probably so. Maybe safety if you wanted to spruce that up a little bit, though
right
you're
tackle.
still waiting for some acquisitions there.
I think right tackle.
League-wide, though, I think it's always going to be centered around quarterbacks, but this year there are quite a few rookie quarterbacks who are competing for starting jobs. We had 6 first-round rookies this year, whether they should have been drafted in the first round, whether you are a Bo Nix believer or a Bo Nix denier, whether you think that the Atlanta Falcons are fools for drafting Michael Penix, or if you thought that was a bit overblown because what am I going to pass on a quarterback because I've got Kirk Cousins? There's a lot of that I think is going to hover around all of these training camps, that it's always quarterback-centric, but this year has a lot of that intrigue. Now, how many of them are outright competing for jobs? Because you were telling me before the show started that Jaden Daniels is not going to be immediately named QB1 for the Washington Commies.
We've already begun the song and dance with coaches pretending like their top 5 picks at quarterback will not be day one starters. In some cases of these first-round picks, which we'll talk about all of them coming up in hour 2, but in some cases, there could be an actual battle there, like in Minnesota. But in other cases, like in Washington, can we skip this part? Can we skip the Gardner Minshew, Trevor Lawrence quarterback battle thing?
You're accusing him of being Urban Meyer that way?
No, I'm not accusing him of being Urban Myers. Dan Quinn is an actual accomplished NFL head coach.
And from what I understand, a decent human being.
Yes, I feel like John Gruden, more importantly. Oh, God. But can we skip this part, though, where the number 2 overall pick at quarterback on a team with a bunch of new faces, we're going to pretend like he's not going to be the guy this year in favor of Marcus Mariota? Or Jeff Driscoll? Or Sam Hartman?
That wasn't very nice of us to just laugh at Marcus Mariota that way. I did laugh. I would love to avoid that because is anybody screwing? The Bears can't afford to screw around with their fan base like that by trying to act like somebody's pushing Caleb Williams.
Who's the Bears' backup?
I couldn't even tell you because nobody's talking about them because God help Matt Eberflus if he tries to just pose any kind of quarterback competition at any part in camp. Who's the backup?
What I would give for Matt Eberflus to come out and say that Caleb Williams and Tyson Bagent are locked into a battle for QB1.
I forgot about that guy. He played football games last year. We thought he was something for a hot second.
D3 legend. Brett Rippon is there, and Austin Reed.
Okay.
WKU legend is in that room.
Yeah, there would be some kind of violent crime mob outside calling for Matt Eberflus's head if he even tried to pretend like the Chicago Bears are not going to be starting Caleb Williams week 1 at home against the Tennessee Titans. But Caleb Williams in and of himself is a training camp narrative, right? That's the Titans, at least that's the most Titans adjacent one that I could find among the most popular talking points this offseason, right?
That's the first 2 opponents for the Titans.
Correct. Jets at home in week 2, and the Titans will open on the road at the Bears. But Caleb Williams and just this general, I don't want to say it's disdain, but there seems to be a lot of defensive players who are excited about the idea of planting this dude squarely on his ass. Now, you could say that about any rookie quarterback at any given point, any highly touted rookie quarterback, right? And I think a lot of that, by the way, is earned on Caleb Williams' side. He's the first overall pick in the NFL draft. He is the best quarterback prospect, and he's playing for a historic franchise that has been absolutely tormented and tortured at that specific position. So I don't think there's anything wrong with Caleb Williams having a little bit of attitude about himself. But he's going to be hyper-scrutinized. Any kind of turnovers or it's all going to be a huge story anytime Caleb Williams does anything, good, bad, or indifferent. And in the weeks leading up, we will also have the added component of Caleb Williams on Hard Knocks because the Bears are the preseason Hard Knocks while the Giants are we're still in the midst of the Giants offseason Hard Knocks.
You going to watch? I think I will.
Well, This one has a little bit more relevancy because maybe there's just some kind of discussion about game planning for week one that we catch a glimpse of that might be worth us paying attention to. For the audience, I'm sure they'll watch. I don't know. I'm sure there's something. Please God, let there be something to be learned out of that particular Hard Knock season. But outside of that, training camp narratives different than season narratives, right? Because if this was a season narrative, we would be discussing the idea of Patrick Mahomes. Are they going to go undefeated? They're favored for a third straight Super Bowl. And there is some of that, right? Oh my God, look at him find Xavier Worthy on one of the first passes in training camp for just a flick of the wrist 60-yard touchdown. That stuff is going to be out there. But I do think the Chiefs' improvement is going to be the Chiefs' offensive improvement is going to be a dominant discussion. I think the Cowboys' contract situation, whether there's holdouts, whether they say, all right, Dak, play it out this year and pray we don't get Joe Flacco'd in the way that Flacco got the Ravens after that Super Bowl run contractually. That is the bulk of it. The thing that I also, because I just put in the Google machine, NFL training camp narratives, one of the first one that popped up with multiple articles was Justin Herbert. And not similar to the conversation that I was having yesterday where I was trying to understand why more pressure isn't put on him to achieve greatness, even though he has been statistically great at various points in his career. Do you remember this around Marcus Mariota, that he's too quiet to be a starting quarterback in the NFL?
Yep.
They're currently going through that with Justin Herbert right now.
Interesting.
Where he's not commanding enough in the huddle, where he doesn't have that kind of domineering, overarching presence that QB1. Alpha, right? That's Marcus Mariota hit all the time with not an alpha in some of the discussions around that I'm sure the players got so sick of time after time. And listen, some of that, you do have to have a certain kind of commanding presence, and whether Marcus possessed that or not was certainly debated on these airwaves and many other Tennessee Titans message boards or wherever kind of internet dialogue you're having. But that's currently happening with Justin Herbert. Players are having to answer questions about whether he's too quiet or not.
Well, I don't know if he's commanding the huddle, but he's commanding a lot of cash from the Los Angeles Chargers. Also commanding cash is a Jaguars player that just signed a record deal in NFL history.
We'll talk about that coming up next. We'll also get to some Titans statistical predictions ahead of training camp. Who we think is going to lead this team. Will Levis be the first 4,000-yard passer? Who's going to lead them in receptions this year? 615-737-1045 is how you join the conversation. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Not exactly understanding there's no sunshine today. Why hello sunshine? It's very rainy outside. Rain for the first time in like a month.
You have to read into everything?
Yeah. But not an Aretha Franklin guy. That's unfortunate.
The only reason this is in here is because of me.
Known
Otherwise,
Aretha
I'd be listening
Franklin
Known Aretha Franklin hater.
Otherwise, I'd be
Buck
listening
Rising.
to Limp Bizkit, which I also see.
You get Limp Bizkit the rest of the show.
That's fine. That's fine. I like Limp Bizkit. Throwback.
There's money going around the AFC South.
Thank you.
Breaking sports news on 104.5 The Zone.
It is relevant because it is an AFC South opponent and because they have done nothing but spend money. The AFC South has done nothing but spend money this offseason between these four teams. But the Jacksonville Jaguars are in the news. 12 minutes ago, Adam Schefter, Jaguars cornerback Tyson Campbell, the 24-year-old former second-round pick, is signing a 4-year extension with Jacksonville per sources. That is the third huge contract that they have handed out this offseason. Trevor Lawrence, quarterback, 5 years, $275 million. Joshua Hines Allen, 5 years, $141.25 million. Both of those, by the way, the first $100 million player and first $200 million player in Jaguars history. Tyson Campbell, 4 years, $76.5, making him one of the highest paid corners. Now, he is young, and they're doing well to get ahead of any kind of market inflation around the cornerback position because he didn't have one of his best seasons, and he did start I have him in 12 games for the Jags last year, but he is a very talented player. That defense is something that I think they're buying on. Other than Trayvon Walker, it's a pretty stout defensive unit. They've done well, and they've been picking at the top of the draft for a couple of years, including Lawrence and Josh Hines Allen, all these other players that they've been able to acquire. So at some point that was going to come to the forefront. But Tyson Campbell getting a really, really big deal and not having, at least I think, wide-scale name brand equity at the top of the cornerback market the way that NFL fans know Sauce Gardner or Jalen Ramsey or L'Jarius Sneed, for example, because now Tyson Campbell is paid. I mean, that's the L'Jarius Sneed deal.
Yeah,
4 years, 76.5.
I wouldn't call him a household name. He is the highest paid corner in NFL history that has yet to be named to a Pro Bowl with over $53 million in guaranteed money. Great player at Georgia. Great player at Georgia that dealt with injury at Georgia.
Now, he ranks as, and listen, we preface this, we have to preface this every time, Pro Football Focus grades are not the most important thing. But worth noting that he was the 75th graded corner, according to Pro Football Focus last year, with a grade of 61.5. He missed some time in the middle of the season dealing with injuries, but did finish out the stretch. One of his, it was kind of up and down. And again, playing through injury is what is being cited there as the primary reason, because for the first, 6-7 weeks of last year, he was a really, really good player. And then it kind of dipped and wavered down the stretch in their games against San Francisco, Cincinnati. They had a tough time against Tampa Bay as well before losing to Tennessee at the end of the regular season and missing the playoffs. But Tyson Campbell, the latest on the Jaguars' mega payroll that they keep having to put together. Now, for the purposes of the AFC South, the money has been insane. Now, it's largely the Colts and Jags spending on their own people, right? Indianapolis took the same kind of path. That's been Chris Ballard's MO, rather than pay people in free agency, other than trading for DeForest Buckner and then giving him a fat contract. It has been largely retention on players that are homegrown in Indianapolis. Tennessee took a much different tact this offseason out of necessity, didn't have talented players, had to add top-end talent, paid at the top of the market at a lot of different positions, corner, wide receiver, offensive line, to try and supplement that. They've spent their cap space as best as they could based on the players that they were able to acquire. Houston doing the same in a much different space. I think of the Colts and the Titans on being closer to one another than I do, for example, the Titans being, on the same footing as the Houston Texans, right?
Well, there's a lot of similarities in terms of the quarterback discussion with those two teams.
In Indianapolis and Tennessee.
Yes. C.J. Stroud had one of the best rookie years in NFL history. So there is not this sort of prove it feeling with C.J. Stroud. He still has to prove it and prove that it can be sustainable in year to year. But it's a very different discussion from Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. Who has more to prove in 2024? Anthony Richardson or Will Richardson, right? Because it's so baseline, just be there, be out there. But who will have more eyes on them in 2024?
Richardson.
Top 5 pick.
Oh, I mean, tell me how this strikes you. I think he has the highest ceiling of any of the four.
Yeah, and so it's interesting that the league expectation of Anthony Richardson is probably going to be higher than of Will Levis.
Oh, yeah.
Top 5 pick, all the physical abilities, despite all the moves the Titans made around Will Levis, including on the coaching staff.
But, I don't think that part is irrelevant. The coaching staff, we'll find out what kind of coach Brian Callahan is, right? We'll find out how well he does in the Cincinnati play calling mold with Nick Holtz, and however this works, we'll see how that comes along. There is a lot of love league-wide for Shane Steichen that I think is also buying Anthony Richardson. It's affecting Anthony Richardson in two ways. One, it makes people more optimistic that Anthony Richardson is going to succeed and become something that is more reliable, something that is more consistent with high-end traits. I mean, the guy is not Lamar Jackson as a quarterback prospect. Lamar Jackson played in pro-style systems at Louisville. He was much further along as a passer than Anthony Richardson was. He played a lot more football, right? Richardson famously not playing a ton of college and through, I think they have him at 12 total quarters of professional football last year because of the concussion and the shoulder injury.
Yep.
Shane Steichen, though, does buy him some developmental goodwill, it seems, from people who talk about football, because they trust Shane Steichen to bring him along because they were able to manufacture pretty, I don't want to say high-level offense, but pretty sustainable offense on a week-by-week basis with Gardner Minshew, who you don't really trust. Gardner Minshew is not a good player.
Since high school, Anthony Richardson has started 17 games in his NFL career.
Yeah, that's the thing. But because he's got the better draft pedigree between him and Levis, because the Colts are probably the most covered or discussed AFC South team in any given year, right? The Texans are obviously the team that's being discussed this season, but I feel like the Colts are brought up most frequently when talking about the AFC South because people most associate the Colts having success in the AFC South, even though they haven't won the division since Luck was the quarterback.
Kent says on the F&M Bank chat, so why isn't that same conversation and developmental time given to Levis? Because with Levis, it is kind of a do-it-now thing. Oh, did you read that?
No.
Okay. Why'd you look at me like that then?
That's because I'm smiling at the idea of us talking about the Titans tax so much and people still ignoring it. Because I genuinely do think there's something to that.
Well, but I think it's a different discussion because Levis is an older player. Levis has more football under his belt than Anthony Richardson. So I think it's fair to give Anthony Richardson a kind of a longer runway in his development before, and he does have high expectations on him this year. But I don't think it's a show us now or we're out on Anthony Richardson.
No, it can't be.
You need to see some things. But it's a different discussion with Levis.
Well, what's the biggest difference between the two of them? One is a first-round pick and has a fifth year, but they have the fifth-year option.
Yeah.
They have an additional year to figure out what Anthony Richardson is. Levis is a second-round pick. He's going to be on year 2 of a 4-year deal.
Yeah.
Like this whole thing is ramped up exponentially on Will Levis, not just because he's an older player, not just because he's more of a formed player than Anthony Richardson is, but because you just don't have the same kind of time frame.
Yep.
Now, why isn't for other reasons that the conversation wouldn't be the same? What is, again, the difference between Shane Steichen, who was in front of more people on a more regular basis last year. Because what were the Colts? They were 9-8. They were a competitive football team. They were in it down the stretch the entire time, in the hunt, right? Just staying in the mix despite not having their starting quarterback, doing it with a journeyman who most of us associate with being below average. He is a below average player in Gardner Minshew, and they were able to cobble together a winning football season despite missing out on the playoffs. Shane Steichen was in front of people more regularly. He was having more success. Brian Callahan just got here. So just because, as a head coach, Brian Callahan has an impressive resume. Brian Callahan is a football lifer. Of all the first-year head coaches who you may have questions about, how are they going to handle it? How are they going to do in this situation? Are they going to navigate all the ins and outs? I'm least concerned about him, most of all, because of his it's in his blood. It's literally in his DNA. How to manage these things. He's been prepared for this moment his entire career, his entire life. So I'm not that caught up in it with Brian Callahan. But if you want to know why the narratives are different, I think it's pretty easy to discern. You want to make some statistical predictions or expectations? Set some statistical expectations for the Titans this year?
Let's talk about expectations.
I think expectations are fair. So it is the expectation of the Tennessee Titans this year that Will Levis will be an improved football player. But what exactly does an improved football player look like? Context is important. Numerical, counting stats aren't everything, is basically the conversation that will, or the thing we'll use to preface all of this. Counting stats aren't everything. But Will Levis, in 9 games as an NFL starter last year, had 1,800 passing yards. He was a below 60% passer on completion percentage. Completion percentage is not the most accurate way to measure the accuracy, but still, the completion percentage of 58.4 is anemic, if I'm being kind about it. So 1,808 yards, a 58.4 completion percentage, with 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, while taking 28 sacks in that very, very brief starting quarterback stint. I am of the belief that he is capable of being this franchise's, at least not the Titans era franchise, that he is going to be the first 4,000-yard passer in the Titans era franchise. So in the last 26 years of Tennessee Titans football, I think Levis is capable of doing it. I think that is more, I think it's more achievable, though, if he's just out there, if he's available. Like, that's the reason that I think it's sustainable for him to be able to get that mark. Not that he needs to be any kind of statistically great this year, but I think that if he stays available long enough, if he takes care of his body, if he's smarter with the way that he plays and they're better up front, that should lend itself to an easier path to being a 4,000-yard passer. I think that should be the expectation.
Yes, but I don't think you could, in that same vein, say if Will Levis is not a 4,000-yard passer, then he had a disappointing season.
No.
Right? But you could move that bar back a little bit and put it at 3,500, right? If he's healthy out there and what we think this offense is going to be, then if it's below that 3,500 mark, maybe you start to think some concerns crept up along the way.
So let's say 3,500 yards passing for Will Levis should be a reasonable expectation.
Yes.
He's played enough football. He's been competitive. Some of it may be inflated if they're chasing in games or whatever, but that he's been available largely is the point there. I don't want to set the bar too low, though, because I want to 25 touchdown passes does not seem like that. It should be that big of a stretch in an offense like this. That's going to have 3 wide receiver sets. That should be able to spread it out in the red zone efficiently. I feel like 25 passing touchdowns should be achievable.
What do you think is the Titans, not Oilers, but Titans record for single season passing touchdowns?
Is it Tannehill?
It's definitely Tannehill.
It's Tannehill in 2020. So I think that Ryan Tannehill had 33 passing touchdowns in 2020.
Prior to that, it's Mariota. In 2016, he had 26. McNair's best was 24 in 2003.
25 feels reasonable based on that barometer. Because, again, he would have played enough football, and it's not like we're asking him to be the most, the highest scoring touchdown in a single season in Titans history and have 34 passing touchdowns. We're not asking him to be Mahomes in year 2. Didn't Pat have 50 touchdowns in his second year? Something obscene, right? Because it was his first opportunity to be the full-time starter. So I think that 25 passing touchdowns feels reasonable based on the barometer of, are you available enough to play enough football to achieve these goals?
He did have 50.
In his first full year as a starter.
First year, 50 touchdowns.
Why does any of this matter if the Chiefs are just going to win it again? That's
12 interceptions.
Don't hit people in the face with that.
And then
that's just a casual 50 burger.
They didn't win the Super Bowl.
That was the 18 season?
18. And then in 2019, when they did win their first Super Bowl, he threw 26 touchdowns and 5 interceptions in the regular season. And then got the touchdown number up to 38, 37, 41. Last year, 27 and 14 picks. Was his worst year as a passer, statistically, last season for Pat Mahomes.
So, interceptions. How many interceptions is a reasonable number for a player who had 4 behind a hideous offensive line, probably had a few more dropped in terms of interceptable passes? But accuracy is one of the concerns here.
You could say the drops balance out, I think, because the Titans dealt with it too, in terms of what could have added to Will Levis's statistical total.
Sure. 4 interceptions in 9 games last year. Really, most NFL quarterbacks, how many NFL quarterbacks, I don't know how easy this is for you to pull up, but how many NFL quarterbacks threw more than 10 interceptions or threw double-digit interceptions last year? I would be surprised to see it be that many. Now, again, expanded regular seasons, more opportunities for turnovers, more high-leverage situations. I bet there's not more than...
How many? How many do you think threw 10 or more interceptions last season?
I'll say 16. I'll go
15.
Half. 15.
15. The likes of Baker Mayfield, who had a career year, Jordan Love, Matt Stafford, Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and Pat Mahomes, as well as Tua, all threw 10 or more interceptions.
I'm going to say he's going to have 10 interceptions this year. 25 passing touchdowns, 10 interceptions. For a player that's working through a new offense, working through new mechanics, has accuracy as a question mark anyway, I don't think that 10 is an unfair number. If he's on the same trajectory as those kind of players last year, again, context for these interceptions matter, but I think 10's a nice round number, even if it's more than you'd like to see your quarterback turn the football over.
Elsewhere, you look at where things are even in terms of roster competition, like DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley at receiver, and Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears. In terms of their involvement in the offense, figures to be pretty balanced. Between those two duos with D-Hop and Ridley, what do you look at in terms of a expectation for those players with yards, catches, and touchdowns? My bold prediction a couple weeks ago was Calvin Ridley has more yards and touchdowns. He leads the team in those categories, and D-Hop leads the team in catches.
Yeah, I don't think that's unrealistic, right? Because of the style of the two players. Now, the thing that would stick out here is Tyler Boyd and how much he, just as a pure slot receiver, how much does he cut in to receptions that way? How much is that evenly distributed among the three of them is, depending on how many games that they play. So I think that between the two of them, Hopkins and Ridley, I would say that 1,800 receiving yards total between the two of them would be, I think, acceptable. One gets to 1,000, one's just shy. I think receptions, both around the 50s. It was lopsided last year with just how much more reliable Hopkins was, and Hopkins also available. He had 75 catches last year on many more targets. He played in all 17 games. I think that probably more in the 50s for each of those players would make a lot more sense based on the added talent and what they have. Let's say 15 touchdowns between the two of them. I don't know how I'd divvy that up, but I think 15 touchdowns between the two of them. 15 combined touchdowns for DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley would make me feel a lot better about this offense. Coming up next, we are going to get into what made us say, oh no, this week. 615-737-1045 is the number. If they call that number, Jackson, what can they win?
They tell us what made you say, oh no, this week for a chance to win 2 tickets to see Hootie and the Blowfish this Saturday at Bridgestone Arena, plus a $100 gift card to a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa.
That's a nice gift. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you call in, if you give us the thing that made you say, oh no, 2 tickets to Hootie and the Blowfish and a $100 gift card from a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. It is presented by A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. We're very happy to have them aboard to make one of our favorite segments of the week a little less stressful. They are also giving you the opportunity to win a $100 gift card plus these Hootie and the Blowfish tickets to the concert when, Jackson?
This Saturday.
This Saturday, Bridgestone Arena. Hootie and the Blowfish tickets, 2 of them, and a $100 gift card from A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. All you have to do is tell us what in sports made you say, oh, no. Are you familiar with the work of Nick Castellanos?
Yes. Major League Baseball and pop culture legend.
Well, I have to be careful how I phrase this because his history of hitting home runs during legitimately significant events in the course of history is not just funny moments in broadcasting like Tom Brenneman, who did a not funny thing on the front end by using a very, very strong homophobic slur on a live microphone in the middle of a Reds Padres or Pirates? Who were they playing?
The Royals. They were playing
Reds
the
Royals game at a hot mic homophobic slur situation, and Nick Castellanos homered in the middle of that. That made you laugh because the apology was ridiculous because somebody at Fox let him do it on the air and should have been fired afterwards. But Nick Castellanos had another home run hit on the day that Joe Biden did something unprecedented, which is withdraw from the presidential race. He also hit a home run on the day that Donald Trump had an assassination attempt. He also hit home runs on the anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Ocean Gate submarine explosion. Do you remember that with the PS2 controller or PS3 controller?
Goodness.
That some idiot sent a submarine down with? Anyway, Vin Scully's death announcement. An hour after the death of Queen Elizabeth was announced, a bridge collapse, the eulogy for the just deceased PA announcer for the stadium, a Memorial Day tribute package on air, the death of Dwayne Haskins, 10 minutes after Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, an apology of opposing team's coach getting a DUI, a 9/11 tribute video package on the air, and a career-threatening injury for Fernando Tatis. It is one of the most ridiculous lists of weird home run moments I have ever seen in my life. This was the call of them broadcasting the Nick Castellanos home run on the day that Joe Biden withdrew from the presidential race.
Still up for grabs, but the battle for wild card spots with those teams in the Central. As Castellanos lifts one a deep left field. Going back is Reynolds. It is gone. A long home run for Nick Castellanos. His 14th of the year. 50 RBIs, and it's 6-0 Phillies.
Ann Herndon, one of our favorites around here in the F&M Bank chat on YouTube, says, as a gay person, I'm totally okay with the slur because it gave us the Castellanos moment from Tom Brenneman, which, Jackson, is one of the funniest sports broadcasting moments of my lifetime. Can I hear that, please?
Over on the mound, I made a comment earlier tonight that I guess went out over the air that I am deeply ashamed of. If I have hurt anyone out there, I can't tell you how much I say from the bottom of my heart. I'm so very, very sorry. I pride myself and think of myself as a man of faith. As there's a drive in a deep left field by Castellanos, it will be a home run. And so that'll make it a 4-0 ball game. I don't know if I'm going to be putting on this headset again. I don't know if it's going to be for the Reds. I don't know if it's going to be for my bosses at Fox. I want to apologize for the people who signed my paycheck, for the Reds, for Fox Sports Ohio, for the people I work with, for anybody that I've offended here tonight. I can't begin to tell you how deeply sorry I am. That is not who I am and never has been. And I'd like to think maybe I could have some people that could back that up. I am very, very sorry, and I beg.
All right, we're good on Tom Brennan.
No. It's important because he says, that's not the person I am, except he was that person literally 3 minutes ago when he yelled a slur into a hot mic. Unbelievable moment.
The day Nick Castellanos was born, March 4th, 1992, there needs to be some investigative journalism to see what disaster occurred on that day for the 32-year-old third baseman to have the legacy that he has had in hitting those homers in those type of moments.
J-Rob's Burner on YouTube says every time he hits a home run, you have to check the news.
Check the
Nick
news.
Castellanos. I don't know if he's a legend. I don't know if he's the bringer of doom. Whatever he is, he's iconic.
My oh no is USA basketball. What is going on here? USA barely escaped South Sudan over the weekend. They have to come back to beat South Sudan by a point. And then LeBron James, of course, the face of the greatest franchise known to the planet, LeBron James, has to score the final 11 points for the U.S. down the stretch in order to take down Germany 92-88 in London. Now, Germany's a good team. Germany are world champions, I believe, from the FIBA World Cup. But still, feels like there's some concern with this USA basketball team not outright dismissing their pre-Olympic trial opponents.
I just think the rest of the world's caught up to us in basketball. Jackson?
I don't think so.
I'm going with the Atlanta Braves. Braves have had a ton of injury struggles. Ozzie Albies, Ronald Acuna, Spencer Strider, Michael Harris Jr. And so they signed Whit Merrifield for a little bit of injury help to, fill a roster spot while some players healed up. And while he was taking warm-ups prior to his first game with the Braves, took a ball off the finger, and he is now day-to-day with a finger injury. Braves can't catch any breaks.
Unfortunate. 615-737-1045 for the opportunity to win some Hootie and the Blowfish tickets and a $100 gift card to a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. Let's start with Eric.
Hey, guys. So mine is for Bollywood Jr. He's absolutely killing it this year, and it sucks saying that as a Cardinals fan, but he's mashing it this year. And yesterday against the Diamondbacks, he comes to bat in the sixth inning. He's a single shy of the cycle already in the sixth inning. And the Diamondbacks aren't happy. They're getting killed. And so they intentionally hit him, trying to take away his opportunity of getting that cycle. And then, next inning, the Royals aren't happy about that. They intentionally hit one of the Diamondback hitters. There's ejections and all that. And that's my oh no for the week.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's an ugly one. But how the hell does baseball get away with throwing at people that way? Just launching an 80 mile an hour, 100 mile an hour projectile at somebody because you're pissy. Kyle is up next.
Hey guys. Well, the dumbest thing period right now is just stupid presidential election. But I will try to keep it to sports. Our Titans captains and leaders, some of these guys are just too soft. If I were them, I wouldn't care about what them pissants say about me. I mean, I'm here to ball out, and if I ball, they're going to talk good. If I struggle, they're going to write about it. It's common sense. But so I love my Titans. I love them more than anybody I know. But, guys, we need to toughen up a little bit. Come on, Big Jeff. I know you're listening.
Appreciate the call, Kyle. It's going to be interesting with some of the dynamics here in the next couple of weeks, but I'm looking forward to that too. It's always fun once we get back together for training camp. All right, Eric or Kyle?
Eric.
Yeah, Eric had a good submission.
Yeah, that's pretty ugly in baseball. All right, so congratulations to Eric on winning the prize. Coming up next, which first-round rookie quarterbacks will the Titans see on their schedule this year? Training camp reports are coming out. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Hey guys, it's Lucas Panzica here to tell you about Hattie B's, where you need to be on your lunch break today. Go get some of Nashville's best hot chicken. It's the summer of cheese at Hattie B's. Be sure to grab some of that drinking buddy beer cheese to dunk your fried pickles, your chicken sandwich, your fries. It works with anything. By the way, come join us July 27th for the Hattie B's Charlotte Ave location's 10th year anniversary birthday party. Throwing a birthday party with food specials, fun activities planned all day. It'll open up at 10 a.m. with some great $10 brunch specials like $10 chicken and waffles, $5 Bloody Marys, and mimosas. We will also serve up a special birthday chicken sandwich and some hot catfish starting at 4 p.m. You do not want to miss out on that. There will be live music, games, local vendors like the Peach Truck, Killjoy, Jackalope Brewing, and more, and an exclusive screen anniversary printed shirt that you can pick up with special collab from Nashville Blanket Company. Those will be available for sale. So we will see you Saturday, July 27th, 5209 Charlotte Avenue at the Hattie B's 10th year anniversary birthday party. Be sure to download the Hattie B's app today for pickup or delivery. 11:02. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. The Tennessee Titans report to training camp today at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. They will hit the practice field tomorrow. Head coach Brian Callahan and general manager Rand Carthon will meet with the media in a presser beginning at 12:15. You can hear it live right here on The Zone. In AFC South news, the Jacksonville Jaguars are signing cornerback Tyson Campbell to a 4-year extension worth $76.5 million. That includes $53.4 million effectively guaranteed. He is now the highest paid corner in NFL history that had yet to be named to a Pro Bowl. In other NFL news, the Miami Dolphins are signing veteran edge rusher Emmanuel Ogbah. Cameron Wolf of NFL Network reporting it is a 1-year deal worth up to $5 million. And Jets defensive end Hassan Reddick is not planning to report to training camp today as he seeks a new contract. The Jets acquired Reddick in a trade with the Eagles this offseason. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
What's happening? We got press conferences for you in just about an hour from now. Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon, Assistant General Manager Anthony Robinson will all be made available, and you will hear from all three gentlemen throughout the last part of the show, the final third. In the meantime, we got some discussions to get to with 4 potentially of the 6 first-round rookie quarterbacks on the Titans schedule. How many will actually make their start against the Titans? You have, of course, Caleb Williams at the Bears. We talked about this to open the show. Matt Eberflus would be run out of town with pitchforks and torches if they made any kind of nonsensical effort to create a quarterback competition that should not and does not exist between Caleb Williams and what's Badgett's first name?
Tyson Bagent.
Tyson Bagent.
Okay, how about this? You give me a percentage, assuming health, because obviously injury could play a role in this. So if every first-round rookie quarterback the Titans are playing are healthy this year, give me your percentage chance that the Titans see Caleb Williams week 1 in Chicago.
100%.
110, right? Okay. Further down the list, once we get to the New England Patriots, this is late in the season, November 3rd, the New England Patriots come to Nissan Stadium. Gerard Mayo is indicating that Jacoby Brissett is the most, quote, pro-ready guy we have, indicating, which is true, NFL veteran, indicating that Brissett will be the starter over Drake May. What is the percentage chance that in November the Titans see Drake May instead of Jacoby Brissett at Nissan Stadium?
November the 3rd. It's the only game that the Titans, at least on the offshore preseason betting odds, the only game that the Titans are favored in is home against the Patriots in the first week of November. So, pro-ready, how long does it take the Pats to get Drake May pro-ready sufficiently to put him out there is the question that this hinges on.
I mean, the question was about the team's QB competition. The quote from Gerard Mayo, coming out of spring, I think it's clear Jacoby is the most pro-ready guy we have. But does that make him the starter? Like, obviously, he's the most pro-ready guy. He's been in the league for years. Drake May is fresh out of the draft. Does that make Brissett the automatic starter week 1?
Yes, it should.
To you, that's Gerard Mayo saying, no, he's our starting quarterback until Drake May proves otherwise.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's so. There's nothing that what is the great urgency to put Drake May out there before they consider him ready?
They open week 1 in Cincinnati.
So I would think that a 100% chance, barring injury, of Jake Brisket, Jacoby Brissett starting for the Patriots against the Bengals. I would say by the time we get to November, I would probably improve that percentage chance to 25% that Drake May is out there. That's about halfway through the season. That's past the trade deadline. I think depending on, again, injury, there is playing football lends itself to injury. There's a percentage chance that Jacoby Brissett is maybe not healthy by the time we get to November, just based off, playing the odds. So I would say a 25% chance that the Titans would see Drake May on November the 3rd.
I'd go higher than 25, but I also think the Patriots are going to be very bad this year, and they're going to hit a point in the season where the only thing that they're going to get anything out of this season is seeing what they have in Drake May. And I
last year for the Titans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I understand not wanting to put him in a bad position. You don't want to Bryce Young the guy, but I'd put it at higher than 25% chance. I mean, if Drake May doesn't play a snap all season long, like when teams are trying to quote unquote redshirt rookie quarterbacks, typically it's because they feel like they can accomplish something, right? With the veteran that's in place, a la Alex Smith with the Chiefs and what the Titans thought they could do with Ryan Tannehill last year. I don't know what the Patriots' ceiling is this year with Jacoby Brissett. So I think I'd be surprised if by November, May is not the starter.
We cannot have this conversation seriously with your fan base, because somebody is alleging in the FNM Bank chat that he wouldn't be surprised if even Joe Milton played before Drake May. Oh, they can't keep a good Vol down, ladies and gentlemen. No, I don't want it. I really don't want to deal with it.
See, you do this all the time. You will unhinge an entire conversation because of one unhinged YouTube comment from ex-internet user.
It's pretty unhinged.
It is. Joe Milton. It'll be Joe Milton in November.
So, next on the schedule and potential opportunities to play one of these 6 first-round rookie quarterbacks is the Minnesota Vikings on November the 17th. So just a few weeks later. At home, Minnesota has Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is expected to start and at least expected to be the starter once training camp begins for them.
Kevin O'Connell said this week that Sam Darnold will take the majority of first-team snaps when camp opens, but he does expect McCarthy to get some as well.
That, to me, sounds like a more open...
Windows open.
...competition for... I'm blanking on the Michigan rookie.
J.J. McCarthy.
J.J. McCarthy, thank you. You just said that. J.J. McCarthy, it sounds like there's a more open window for J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold to compete. Their week 1 opponent is who?
Let's see. The Vikings play, guess. No. At the New York Giants on the road. We just started listing NFL teams.
Now,
they go to New York.
A road game...
Week 2, they host the 49ers. Sam Darnold, San Francisco legend.
I would say I'll give it a 70% chance that McCarthy is starting by the time the Titans host the Vikings in mid-November. 70% chance.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's Kevin O'Connell saying, yeah, Darnold's our starter, but I want McCarthy to be.
Yeah, I would like to see him play, yes. If you would like to beat Sam Darnold, we would invite you to do so.
So the 4th and final potential first-round rookie quarterback the Titans could play in Washington December 1st with Jaden Daniels. And Dan Quinn is acting like there's a QB competition there.
Yeah, I wish he wouldn't.
For the number 2 overall pick out of LSU and Heisman Trophy winner. What is your percentage chance that the Titans see Jaden Daniels, of course, barring injury in Washington?
I'm going to say 95%.
95%.
If he's healthy, he starts.
I agree with all your... So you went 100% for Caleb Williams.
Yep.
Absolutely. You went 25% that they see May, 70% McCarthy, and 95, you said, for Daniels?
I'm tempted to make it 100, but... just because Dan Quinn pisses me off with stuff like any coach pisses me off with the second overall pick maybe he starts, maybe he doesn't.
No Marcus Mariota revenge game?
Mariota.
Man, you too,
Mariota.
Jackson?
Are you kidding me?
My fault.
Nashville native Jackson Williams.
It's the twang. That's my fault.
Oh, sure. Unbelievable. I think you should put a higher percentage than 25 on Drake May. I'm pretty confident. I think it should be
Patriots legend Jake Brisket
50.
is going to get every opportunity.
When the Patriots are floundering at 2-7, I'm a Patriots fan, I'm pissed if they keep trotting out Jacoby Brissett.
Now wait. If the Patriots, here's what'll be the differentiating factor to me. Jacoby Brissett is a fine backup quarterback. The biggest issue that I have with Jacoby Brissett is the amount he's overcautious. He's overcautious as a player because as a backup quarterback, what are you absolutely conditioned to not do? So help me God, do anything, but don't turn that football over. Do not put us in position where we're having to make up for your mistakes as the backup. Play safe, play clean, protect the football. Jacoby Brissett takes that to an extreme. He does not push it. He leaves a lot of throws on the field when you watch him. That's been the case since the Patriots drafted him as a third-round pick at NC State, fourth-round pick at NC State. So he's a fine NFL player. He's had a successful career. But if they're better than we give them credit for, say the Patriots are this year's Bucks, right? And that maybe they don't win the division because the AFC East is much more competitive. But say they surprise and they're better than we have given them credit for in the preseason. And Jacoby Brissett is leaving throws on the field and missing opportunities to make this team better, and they cost them a close game, then I bet they make a switch. But if they're out of it, I bet they just let Prescott go.
I could not disagree more. I think if they're out of it, you are 100%. Robert Kraft did not draft Drake May this year because he thinks that he can help the Patriots win a championship in 2024. They ain't winning nothing in 2024. I think we're all confident of that when you look at that roster.
Bookmark this. This is my version of
when the Pats win the Super Bowl, we can go ahead and run this back.
That's fine.
But
you're doubting your fellow VFL Gerard Mayo and Joe Milton.
Joe Milton. Oh.
Joe Milton for Super Bowl MVP.
At your own despair.
But come midseason, when the Patriots are out of contention after losses to, I'm looking at their schedule, the Bengals, the 49ers, the Dolphins, the Texans.
Their schedule does suck.
Yeah. At midseason, Drake May is going to be out there because there will be no other reason to watch or go to a New England Patriots game other than to see your rookie quarterback, top 10 pick, Drake May.
615-737-1045. The most interesting position battles in the NFL. We know what the Titans are going to have on the line, but what else does the rest of the league have to compete for? We'll talk about it coming up next. Welcome back to the show, fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Most interesting position battles across the league. Titans have an open competition at right guard. They have an open competition at right tackle. One of those things feels a little more imminent than the other. Feels like Sadiq Charles, at least at the start of training camp, is going to be the right guard. Right tackle is the wild card. Beyond that, we are still awaiting a body or two at safety and edge that might add to the level of competition, though it does seem that it's Elijah Molden's job to lose alongside Amani Hooker. Other than that, it's just trying to figure out who's going to be wide receiver 4, who's going to be cornerback 4, who's going to be running back 3, those kind of things is what populates the Titans roster. League-wide, though, the segment that I'm looking at on my rundown is most interesting position battles in the NFL. Now, normally quarterback position battles are interesting, but I don't think there's anything less interesting than the Raiders quarterback battle.
But we don't get quarterback battles, really, in this era. I mean, when's the last legitimate
Urban Meyer
starting quarterback battle, a not fake one by a fake NFL head coach? The last legitimate starting quarterback battle in the NFL.
Well, it's not even Pittsburgh with Russ and Fields, because it sounds like they're going to let Russ have the first crack at it, and then if the situation necessitates a change, then they'll make a change. But
yeah, teams commit to a quarterback in different ways.
What do you mean? There's an open quarterback competition right now in Washington.
Sure.
To hear Dan Quinn tell it.
At wide receiver, there are some interesting ones because there are some depleted wide receiver rooms across the league with good quarterbacks, like in Buffalo and L.A. So somebody's got to emerge. It's worse off in Buffalo right now. I don't know who's going to grab the share of the targets up there. In L.A., I guess it figures to be Josh Palmer. And then you've got the rookie lad McConkey, and Quentin Johnston has got to have a better year too. And then there's some other depth. But in Buffalo, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Curtis MVS, like who grabs the reins of that pass catching core?
Keon Coleman is the one to watch there, the rookie out of Florida State. But it's not just Stephon Diggs that they lost, right? They lost their starting center in Mitch Morse. They lost their starting safety in Jordan Poyer. They have lost quite a bit, clearing cap space with a lot of veterans that were less cost effective and have had to have more of those competitions than they otherwise might have. Now, their free agency signings were minimal, and it's largely leaning on contributors through the draft to try and earn these spots. Buffalo has a couple across the board there. Is there an open quarterback competition in Atlanta?
No.
Does that change if Kirk Cousins can't start at the start of the year?
Then who would Michael Penix be competing with?
Well, nobody, but Michael Penix would be playing, in theory, and Kirk Cousins would be sitting, and if Michael Penix plays well enough that there is the opportunity to just let it go. I don't know if Arthur Blank is going to be like, how much money are you paying Kirk Cousins to sit on our bench? Are you out of your mind? But I'm telling you,
that could get complicated.
There is a situation here where it's already out of Kirk Cousins' hands just because he's coming off an Achilles tear.
If that happened and Kirk Cousins ended up not even playing a role for the Falcons after getting that contract.
He's a backup quarterback. It's very important nowadays.
Most expensive backup quarterback in NFL history.
By a mile.
Taylor Heineke's down there.
Where?
Also.
In Atlanta?
In Atlanta. Yes. He started games last year.
Stop it.
How about this? Not Ian Rappaport. Ari Myrov tweeted this from Andy Reid, that Chiefs head coach Andy Reid said they've been giving Kadarius Toney running back snaps during camp because they saw positive moments there last year. They believe he enjoys playing that role, so they're going to try to utilize it to the best of his ability at training camp. Kadarius Toney versus Isaiah Pacheco.
You brought up, you asked me if I started watching the receiver show on Netflix, and I got to the Amon-Ra St. Brown part where he's listing all the wide receivers that were drafted ahead of him, and Kadarius Toney is significantly higher on that list, not just one pick ahead of him or a couple of picks ahead of him the way that Des Fitzpatrick was. That's just a glaring one that sticks out. Now, it's harder for Kadarius Toney to drop the ball if you're handing him the ball.
I was going to say exactly that.
But I wouldn't put it past him. But that's not a competition, though.
No, it's just utilizing
Isaiah
a player.
Pacheco is going to be the starting running back. Now, that's like a Jamal Adams. Can I find something for him to do here that helps us kind of situation?
Yeah.
As opposed to outright competition.
Can I use his skill set to my advantage?
Is there anything here? Now, you keep telling me that we don't get quarterback competitions, and yet I keep finding teams where there might be a viable quarterback competition. Do you not believe that the Denver Broncos are having an open quarterback competition? Do you believe they're just going to hand it to Bo Nix?
Yeah. Yeah. Between he and Jarrett Stidham?
Well, what do you mean? You're forgetting one very...
Zach Wilson? Yeah. No, that's going to be Bo Nix.
Just definitively.
If Bo Nix does not start for the Broncos at the Seattle Seahawks
problem.
week 1, I will wear the helmet of shame the Monday after week 1 of the NFL season.
Bookmark it. Bo Nix, Zach Wilson, and Jarrett Stidham, the number 12 pick. Zach Wilson acquired from the Jets, and Stidham, who was there last year as the backup to Russell Wilson. It does feel like if you're going to draft the quarterback 12, especially Bo Nix, who nobody expected to be a first-round pick, none of the pundits, whether teams beyond the Broncos had a first-round grade on him, we'll never know unless that information is divulged at some point down the line. But it would be a tough sell if Sean Payton went in on Bo Nix at 12 and didn't end up starting him.
At some point, the Sean Payton patience is going to start to wear. So I'd be surprised if he hitched that to Zach Wilson in 2024 and not the guy he drafted in the first round, the first quarterback that he has actually brought to the quarterback room in a meaningful way in Denver.
I don't think there's a competition on the offensive line in Philadelphia losing Jason Kelce, but that is one of the more notable absences across the league this year, and that directly impacts how a particular team plays. Jason Kelce, and I know they've had solutions on the roster, backup centers, guys who have been playing guard that were centers in college and things like that. So they've been prepared for this moment, but I am curious to see how much that critical piece impacts one of the top contenders by anybody's consideration in the NFL this year.
Kevin Patra of NFL.com.
Why did you put so much flair on that? Kevin Patra?
Patra, is that what it is?
Kevin Patra.
Whatever. Wrote an article on NFL.com, the most intriguing position battles to track in 2024. What Titans position battle do you think made it? Or do you already know? Did you see this?
No, I didn't. Is it right tackle?
It's right tackle. Where do you think it ranks? From 1 to, he had 24 in here.
23.
19. 19. He says, after a disastrous 2023 campaign along the line, the Titans are once again attempting to solve problems up front. Nicholas Petit-Frere has starting experience, but played only 3 games in 2023. Leroy Watson, no, it's Leroy. You've got me saying it wrong now. Leroy Watson IV was with O-line coach Bill Callahan in Cleveland,
Watson,
which could provide an advantage in the competition. Others like Jalen Duncan, Jaron Christian, and John Ojukwu could be in the mix.
What's below it?
The 20th most interesting position battle, according to this NFL.com article, is cornerback with the Philadelphia Eagles. The question, does Quinyon Mitchell win the starting gig, the rookie out of Toledo? And where does Keely Ringo end up in this? Where does Cooper DeJean play?
Oh, that's right. Cooper DeJean is in Philadelphia. That is a fact. That secondary, that's not more interesting or ranks higher than the Titans' right tackle spot? That's kind of crazy.
Well, it's about keeping Will Levis upright.
Yeah.
So it relates to the quarterback position.
But one of the biggest holes in Philadelphia's Super Bowl contention last year was the secondary. And we're not talking about the Titans as Super Bowl contenders last year. Philadelphia is still being thought of as, rightfully so, I think, as one of the top teams in the NFC.
And then the 21st most intriguing position battle to track here is Ricky Pearsall against Jawan Jennings in San Francisco.
Jawan Jennings, were you disappointed to see him get a contract?
Wasn't he a restricted?
He was
free agent, so I had no expectation of him hitting the market.
Just a little part of you, though?
I love Juwan Jennings. Just a little bit of me. A lot of Tennessee fans would love to see Juwan Jennings in Tennessee. A lot of people would love to not see Juwan Jennings in Tennessee.
So a lot of people down the road in West End, not big Juwan Jennings fans, famously.
Nope. He is a dog.
But Ricky Pearsall in that offense, why? What? I still cannot figure out what Brandon Ayuk thinks he's going to get accomplished. There's just zero reason, if you're the 49ers, to trade him. When you've got Debo, Juwan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk, and you spent a first-round pick on Ricky Pearsall, what on earth would make San Francisco want to give that away or give part of that away? One of the most effective parts of that. I mean, if you spent a first-round pick on the player, fair to expect that you're going to relegate Juwan Jennings to a depth role. What's the biggest hole in his game as a pro? I don't know how much you've watched him.
Juwan Jennings?
Yeah. Like, why hasn't he broken through more effectively in an offense that seems pretty well suited for his skill set? Now, they've got plenty of good players. I mean, the fullback can outsnap Juwan Jennings because he's a receiving threat. George Kittle is a receiving threat for obvious reasons. So maybe it's just they've got too many options to pull from that Juwan Jennings hasn't necessarily been able to break through.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he is largely a possession receiver. He's not necessarily a vertical threat. He can get up and get it, but the speed factor, I don't think he's considered this major outside target, right? With that vertical ability to beat you downfield or beat man coverage. He is a possession receiver that can make physical catches and does seem to come up in big moments and can break tackles like we saw him do at Tennessee. But I don't think he was ever projected as this potential number 1 or 2. I think he was always going to be pretty much exactly where he is, and he's doing that really well.
A reminder that our Titans training camp coverage begins tomorrow. They're going to hit the practice field for training camp. You can tune in the morning. Ramon, Kayla, and Will be live at training camp, and then we will be out there as well broadcasting from Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park on Wednesday and Thursday. You can hear from special guests and players along with live updates from Titans camp starting at 6 a.m. And if you want to watch the interviews that we do with all the players out there, make sure you subscribe to the Zone's YouTube channel. 615-737-1045 is the number. We're talking about the most interesting position battles across the NFL and where the Titans' right tackle battle factors in. Jason is up next.
Hey, guys. I was talking about the Niners just now. I was just talking about I think Ricky Pearsall is injured right now. So that wouldn't be too big of a problem. And Juwan Jennings is really underrated receiver, and with Brandon Ayuk, like, they don't need you, honestly. If they don't, they could have traded you if they really needed to. So I don't know why he's trying to ask for all this extra money. They've got plenty of receivers, so he might want to just kind of be humble with stuff a little bit.
Appreciate the call, Jason. I disagree with, humbling yourself in that moment. If you think that you're not paid what you're worth, then I think that you should explore as many viable options to get to that point, the way that wide receivers are all over the place. But I do understand, again, there's zero reason for the 49ers to trade him away. They need him more than they don't need him.
Pearsall, the first-round rookie out of Florida, was placed on the non-football injury list when rookies reported in San Francisco last week, but Matt Barrows, who covers the team for The Athletic, says he's hearing the injury that landed Pearsall on that list is not considered serious.
Okay. The other thing that I'm interested in to see how it emerges, and this is also something that kind of tangentially was tied to the Titans. Aaron Donald retired famously this offseason. The Rams defense, I don't know what to make with it, but they spent their first 2 picks on that defensive front. They added Jared Verse out of Florida State. Then they traded up to 39. They tried to trade it up to 38 with the Titans, but the Rams traded to 39 with the Carolina Panthers to draft Jared Verse's teammate and running mate, Braden Fisk, to help replace Aaron Donald. So what that looks like, they've got a new defensive coordinator because Raheem Morris is now the head coach of the Falcons. I believe Chris Shula is now the DC in Los Angeles. So those are as interesting training camp positional battles to play out because we've had just a lot of attrition, it feels like, this year in the NFL.
Be an interesting year.
So From most interesting position battles to available players, there's been some movement on the free agent market that one retirement specifically caused. Shaq Barrett retired after signing a one-year deal with the Dolphins. They immediately signed Emmanuel Ogbah to a one-year deal to try and strengthen that defensive front. But there are other players who have been taking visits around the league, and we're going to dive into the veteran edge market, what the Titans might be considering or should be considering coming up next. Summertime is here. We are in the midst of it, and we are releasing a limited number of lake lots to the public. It's a one-day only moment. Saturday, July 27th, you can experience resort lake living at a fraction of the price. 2-acre wooded estate lots with boat slips from just $79,900. You can reserve your townhome from only $20,000. Lake cottage packages with boat slips only $349,900. Private golf cart access to a new marina with 10 miles of walking trails, 3.5 miles of shoreline, and a brand new 25,000 square foot clubhouse. You can catch summer waterfront concerts or pickleball pools, on-site coffee shop, and so much more. Play on the lake or simply relax at the Waterfront Restaurant, just over 20 minutes from Knoxville, Tennessee, and a short drive to the Smoky Mountains. They have financing available also, so call to secure your private appointment. Times are limited. Enjoy life on the water, fresh air, boat rides, and sunshine. Celebrate the lake life and make memories daily for this limited property release, Saturday, July 27th. Visit us at lakelivingtn.com. That's lakelivingtn.com, or better yet, give us a call, 865-408-9992. Memories start here. Don't forget, Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon, and Anthony Robinson are going to open up Titans training camp with a handful of press conferences that will be broadcast right here on 104.5 The Zone. They'll get started at 12:15, so you'll be able to hear that. All manner of questions to be asked. I'm sure Sweat will come up. I'm sure Will Levis will come up. I'm sure
Green Dot.
Oh God.
Let's go ahead. Let's hit all the check marks.
Which ones? Which of the off-season program tropes do you think will be hit today? Are we going to hear over under on, let's say, a half Green Dot questions?
Over.
I don't know.
You'll hear at least one Green Dot question.
I guess over is probably the right bet, but I could see us calming down from that pre-practice.
I think it's because we've sufficiently been shamed by people like Keith Bullock who are saying, why are you idiots still asking questions about this?
And there's no new information. We haven't seen any more of a sample size. Once we get some practices and actually see these guys on the field, the Green Dot will come back up. So I think I'd actually go under on the Green Dot.
J.C. Latham flipping from right to left, over, under, a half a question.
Over. Hammer it.
What? You really?
Under.
No.
Under.
Still?
You don't think that there's going to be a question about Latham playing left tackle now that they're going to actually be wearing pads and it's training camp?
Not about flipping from right tackle to left.
Oh, they could ask about his progress on what he did in the offseason program and how that can translate.
No, you have to have
the over.
You have to have the word right in the question for this to be the kind of off-season question that we spent 6 months asking them about.
Bill Callahan.
Oh, for sure.
4.5.
Whatever the over is, or whatever the over-under is, take the over. Take the over on Bill Callahan question.
Traylon Burks.
Over.
Today? Why? For what? For whom? Maybe Rand Carthon. I don't know.
I'll set the over-under at 1.5, and I'll take the over. I'll say there's 2.
2 questions about Traylon Burks?
One for Callahan, one for Rand.
I mean, so I would definitely say one because it's a fair question to ask. Hey, what kind of shape did he show up in? Because that's something we've been talking about for 3 damn years.
Obviously, Jamal Adams will be a hot question.
But that's new, yeah.
Yes. Justin Simmons, I imagine.
Tavondre Sweat. What is the over-under on Tavondre Sweat questions?
3.5, and it's over.
Yeah, probably over.
Yeah, there will be follow-ups, right? About
4 Tavondre Sweat questions?
From the initial.
How many different ways can I ask how much does he weigh?
Just blink in Morse code with his weight as of July 23rd.
366 blinks. So, anyway, we will have those press conferences. You will hear them in the noon hour from all 3 of those individuals. What we are going to talk about now, though, is with the Shaq Barrett retirement. He signed a 1-year deal with the Dolphins. Emmanuel Ogbah is the player that they signed either today or yesterday to supplement that retirement from Shaq Barrett. Edge market right now is pretty sparse for the kind of players that might actually be able to make an impact. Carl Lawson is somebody that we talked about the year that the Titans signed, I want to say Bud Dupree. The fact that he's still an unrestricted free agent he's only 29.
He's coming off an Achilles.
Right.
Which was in 2021.
Why he is still out there and available, that it's been such a long slog back. I'm honestly surprised that Carl Lawson and Yannick Ngakoue are both under 30.
Actually, he played 17 games the year after the Achilles. So what ruled him out last season? Because he only played less than half the year for the Jets. So I'm not sure what injury ended his season in 2023.
The list of top available NFL free agents that are in the qualification of edge, outside linebacker, or defensive end: Carl Lawson, Yannick Ngakoue, Charles Harris, Tyus Bowser. You've got some names like Shaq Lawson out there. Wasn't the one that Lawan was always going back and forth with? Anthony Barr, who is a former first-round pick of the Minnesota Vikings, is out there. Famously, Joe Jones, Titans legend, still out there, even though he's more an off-ball linebacker than an edge guy. And then, names like Isaiah Buggs, who was released from the Chiefs this offseason for that legal situation. I believe had something to do with dogs and animal abuse.
Ngakoue probably finds a landing spot right?
I don't think it has to be before training camp, though. Like,
Sure.
he's going to be the top name, I think, on most people's lists of, all right, what mercenary edge guy can we come in here to platoon a little better up front?
Broken ankle in week 14 last season.
Oh, broken ankle, though.
29 years old, will be 29 throughout the course of the
Late
season.
broken ankle.
Yeah, week 14.
But he's getting visits right now. Like, he's taking visits right now. Now, I haven't seen anything about him taking physicals and passing physicals at this point, but the physical would be later on in the process once they had terms agreed upon in that situation.
Doesn't it feel like they're going to see how the pass rusher kind of competition down the depth chart plays out in camp?
Yeah, but how many different positions are they going to do that with?
Sure.
That's kind of what you're telling me about safety. Oh, they'll let the safety competition play out.
Well,
That's
no,
what we're talking about edge. We'll let the edge competition play out.
I think it's different with safety. I think you feel confident that they've been sniffing around for a safety, right? I mean, they signed one and they could still sign another.
Mm-hmm.
Yet you said there's been no smoke whatsoever on potentially adding an edge rusher.
Been real quiet.
So I feel better about saying they're more willing to see how the edge rusher competition beyond Landry and Key plays out when it comes to what Rashad Weaver can bring in his 4th year as a pro?
Yes.
Year 4 for Rashad Weaver?
Weaver was a 2021 pick. He was in the same... No. Yeah, Weaver was 2021. Yeah. Weaver's 2021.
Jalen Harrell, the 7th rounder out of Michigan, and Kayla Murphy, the UDFA from 2023 out of Fair State. Am I missing anybody of significance in that rotation?
Not really. I mean, it depends on how they view guys. Well, again, it depends on scheme, because I don't want to look at last year's scheme and project what these players might be in it. But depending on how they feel about Keandre Coburn or Marlon Davidson, those aren't edge players, right? Those aren't those aren't outside linebackers necessarily, but can you deploy them on the edge the way that Danico Autry was sometimes deployed on the edge? Hell, Danico, I feel like, spent most of his practice time with the outside linebacker group as opposed to the D-line. So how all that plays out is something that training camp will help tell. Padded practices will help discern that. And I really think, to me, it's the emphasis on the interior guys that allows you to be a little more because you have Harold, right? Harold is your top line player there. He's one of the best players on your defense. He's not the best player on the defense, but he's one of the best. You could probably make the case for him being 2 or 3. Jeff and Sweat panning out, getting interior pressure, and just having a situation where your edge guys are primarily cleanup as opposed to you generating the primary source of your pressure from the edge makes, at least, I'm not going to say it justifies them skimping, but I could understand the thought process being there, that we invested on the interior, so that's going to benefit our guys across the board. And that is the cost benefit analysis that had to be done there. Taking Sweat at 38 versus, maybe waiting a little longer or taking a trade back and getting an edge guy, however you might do that.
I mean, they could have taken an edge guy at 38.
They could have.
So, yeah, I think that told you a little bit about their priorities. And that's what Brian Callahan has talked about from an offensive perspective, too.
Push the pocket.
About how much a game plan can be wrecked by interior pressure. It's also why they invested on the interior of the offensive line with Lloyd Cushenberry, top of the market center. So, yeah, that makes sense.
So right now, nothing imminent as far as veteran edge options. Yannick Ngakoue is the player that is receiving the most attention around the league. Somebody asks if that was if Denard Wilson had Yannick Ngakoue last year. Denard Wilson did not have Yannick Ngakoue as a Baltimore Raven. Ngakoue was a Bear last year when he had the ankle injury.
He was a Raven in 2020. Since he's been with Vegas, Indy, and Chicago.
615-737-1045. The number, like I said, a reminder that we will have the press conferences to open up training camp here in just a little bit at 12:15. That'll start. A reminder that the Tennessee night, not Tennessee Titans night,
okay?
Tennessee night at Truist Park is Wednesday, August the 7th. For the Atlanta Braves, while they take on the Milwaukee Brewers, you can register today for your chance to win a family 4-pack of tickets as well as co-branded tumblers by going to 1045thezone.com. Final hours next. So many people trust Two Rivers Ford. Football players, working moms, business owners. Why? Because Two Rivers Ford has been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
You ever wonder why so many pro athletes go and use stem cell therapy? Because it works. I'm Ron Slade, retired 14-year pro basketball player, and I needed to get this done. After I went through my entire career riddled with injuries, I needed therapy, so I went to Kellum Stem Cell Institute out in Franklin. Why? Because they're the stem cell specialists. They can be yours too. They're the stem cell specialists of the Tennessee Titans. You know why? Because it works.
Make an appointment today with Kellum Stem Cell Institute.
11:59. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. The Tennessee Titans report to training camp today at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. They will hit the practice field tomorrow. Head coach Brian Callahan, general manager Rand Carthon, and assistant GM Anthony Robinson will meet with the media in a press conference beginning at 12:15. You can hear it live right here on The Zone. In NFL news, a new contract in the AFC South. Jaguars cornerback Tyson Campbell is signing a 4-year, $76.5 million extension that includes over $53 million in guaranteed money. He becomes the highest paid corner in NFL history that had yet to be named to a Pro Bowl in his career. In other NFL news, the Dolphins have signed veteran edge rusher Emmanuel Ogbah. Cameron Wolf of NFL Network reporting it is a 1-year deal worth up to $5 million. In some Titans news, Jamal Adams, the free agent signing at safety, will wear the number 33 as a Tennessee Titan, the number he has worn with the Jets and the Seahawks. It will move second-year cornerback Eric Gare to number 25. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Final hour for us here. Remember that Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon, Assistant General Manager Anthony Robinson, they are all going to be speaking at the podium in just about 15 minutes from now. We'll carry those press conferences live for you. If you want to join the conversation, what's the biggest question that you want to hear answered today at the opening of Titans training camp? Practices beginning tomorrow, of course, but report day is today. We've been looking forward to it. We're excited about it. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. Also have access to the F&M Bank chat, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. They're alike on the YouTube video today if you are streaming there. Training camp begins. We talked about the idea yesterday of stuff that's interesting versus stuff that's important. And this is the conversation that we're going to have about the stuff that's actually important to see play out at training camp. The biggest storylines that we're going to be documenting, that we're going to be talking not just for the next couple of weeks of camp into the preseason, but that will basically carry through or follow a thread throughout the entirety of this first season with Brian Callahan, with Rand Carthon, and with Will Levis in his starting role. So that's probably where you would start first, is just generally the storyline of Will Levis, the thing that we're going to talk about the most. We'll go around the room here, and like I said, you can participate if you want to. But Will Levis and his progression, not just through training camp, not just from the offseason program, but into the preseason, regular season. Can he guide this team to the postseason? And all of the kind of expectations that are being laid at his feet because of all the things they've done around him, everything that they've done to support him. There's been no lack. I mean, we agree, right? By the way, Jackson, Lucas, and I with you for one more hour until 1 o'clock. So Levis, that's where this thing starts and ends. And based on Brian Callahan's resume of quarterback work, I do feel like expectations are pretty high from the fan base about what they think Will Levis should become over the course of the season, provided that he stay relatively healthy.
I wonder who we're going to talk about Will Levis. Who does Will Levis love in training camp? Because with Ryan Tannehill, it felt like it was Kyle Phillips for the last 2 years. There was even some of that last year at training camp with Will Levis and, working with the twos or whoever it might be, looking to Kyle Phillips. Are we going to talk about Will Levis and Calvin Ridley establishing a connection with deep shots and 7-on-7s or in joint practices? Or is it going to be somebody we don't really expect that ends up running with the ones
NWI
from time to time? Right, is that it?
The most expected thing in the world, NWI.
But then in turn, how does that impact the wide receiver battle, the churn at the bottom of the wide receiver room? Is it going to come down to NWI versus Kyle Phillips? Or better way to phrase it, Jaquan Jackson versus Kyle Phillips. Does that end up being kind of a 1v1 battle that we're going into the last preseason game seeing, okay, whoever has a better performance today has the more likely spot on the initial 53?
So following that, the storyline, another storyline, is how much better this roster actually is from all the different things that we've talked about, all the different moves that they've made, the trades, the free agent signings, the draft picks that have since been added, how this thing looks markedly improved, not just at the top level, right? Because there's going to be injuries. How much more secure do you feel in your backup quarterback position? Because Mason Rudolph is a quality backup quarterback who has been forced into action at various points in his career. And while he came up short in a playoff game for the Pittsburgh Steelers last year, he still managed to put together a nice string of wins, and that you can trust him within the scope of this system. Quarterback depth also includes Malik Willis and how that plays itself out. That may be more of a short-lived storyline, but the point with backup quarterbacks is they're all going to play at some point. It feels like with the way that the expanded regular season, further expanded regular seasons to come based on the reporting from Adam Schefter today about 18 games being seriously on the table between the NFL and the NFLPA. So backup quarterback never been more important. Top to bottom depth of this roster. It is definitely more talented than when last we saw it come together in 2023, or I guess in January of 2024. But how much better is it from top to bottom? Because a lot of these guys, corners, wide receivers, depth offensive linemen, quarterbacks, are going to be forced into action at some point, and you have to be able to trust it reasonably, the way that the Bengals were able to trust it reasonably last year when their most important player went down.
I wonder if we actually see a competition for the backup quarterback spot. Because Brian Callahan has said that, but with the money they brought Mason Rudolph in for, I have a hard time thinking that there is a reality in which Malik Willis is QB2 for this team. So what does that look like right out of the gates? Is it Rudolph playing with the 2s, Willis with the 3s immediately, or is it going to be a little more interchangeable? Are they going to actually approach this like a legitimate QB2 competition? Because I don't really consider it to be one. Do you?
Nobody out there does. Well, nobody out there watching does. The coaching staff may feel differently about it internally. I think it's fair to expect, though, that they wouldn't have paid Mason Rudolph decent money to come in here and be the backup quarterback if they felt confident enough in what they've seen on tape from Malik Willis. Now, I don't think that necessarily means that Malik Willis gets cut by the time the regular season rolls around. I think there's a very real scenario that you could still find 3 quarterbacks on the initial 53-man roster, though. How long that lasts, how much that varies based on positional needs, injuries in other places. I mean, if they say that they're going to treat it like a quarterback competition, then I don't think there's anything wrong with splitting reps more evenly between Rudolph and Willis in the early going, at least ahead of the first, in the weeks leading up to the first preseason game. And then once you have the preseason games, you can establish more of a lineup, but not just quarterback, but at every position that way. Which is kind of the thought process behind the next position, because we did bring up depth running backs yesterday competing for spots, guys that seems like a position where it could most likely be a name that we haven't talked about, beating out Hassan Haskins, for example, right, who's no surefire lock to make this roster. But really, it's about the running backs and how Derrick Henry is replaced, which to me is not really exclusively about the running backs, because it's replacing the primary source of offense, not just replacing Derrick Henry. It doesn't have to be, what does Tony Pollard do in the absence of Derrick Henry? The question becomes, how does the new Titans coaching staff fill the offensive void, the way that the entire system runs through an individual player? And is Will Levis that player? Or who is the skill player who comes to the fore that way in the same kind of vein as you talking about? Who do we see Will Levis develop his chemistry with? Who is the primary generator of offense for this football team? Maybe non-quarterback division in the absence of Derrick.
Yeah, the running back position's not interesting because it's post Derrick Henry. It's interesting because there is a legitimate battle about to happen for RB3. And we talked about it yesterday. The preseason is pretty conducive to running backs kind of staking their claim for a roster spot. So who is that dark horse, so to speak? Like Julius Chestnut, Dylan Johnson, Jabari Small, and Hassan Haskins, do we figure to all be on some sort of even footing going into training camp?
Especially with a new coaching staff, I wouldn't give Haskins or any of them an edge over the other just based off the offseason program.
But what about the special teams? I mean, that's another position battle we haven't talked about that much. That's a massive question for this team. And how does the running back competition impact special teams in terms of kick return or punt return, something that Hassan Haskins has done in the past for this team, something Julius Chestnut has done in preseason games?
When's the last time you felt like legitimately confident
about a returner?
About a returner, punt or kick for the Tennessee Titans? Because Tajay did it relatively well last year, and that felt like, all right, at least he's going to catch it, right? At least he's not going to bobble it and cause a turnover in a big spot the way that Kyle Phillips or Adoree Jackson or any one of these stopgap type of return players. And I know you don't have to have like an all-pro returner back there for all 32 football teams. That's not how this works. Most of those positions or most of those jobs are pretty interchangeable year to year. Did Dontrell Hilliard have a stint?
Dontrell Hilliard would return kicks for a time, I believe, and
I think that was also due to injury.
Jaquan Jackson's talked about this. He's got that relationship back with Darius Raynaud, Titans legend.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's returned a punt return for a touchdown since Darius Raynaud over a decade ago. So there's kind of been a void there, I think, for some time.
Well, the last effective kick returner that I can remember, speaking of Darius's, is Darius Jennings, who I think was on that initial Mike Vrabel team. He bounced around in a couple of camps.
The kick return for a touchdown in Miami in the longest game in NFL history. But
since the merger.
Both of those wide open, right? Wide open. Kick return and punt return. You could argue the most wide open position battles on the roster, offensively or defensively. I mean, maybe middle linebacker, and that's something we're going to be talking about throughout the course of camp, depth at edge rusher. But in terms of the amount of bodies in the mix, I feel like the specialist spots are way up for grabs more than any other position.
All right. So important versus interesting. I think that's the bulk of the important stuff, right? The other factor of this is not just Brian Callahan, but the entirety of the coaching staff. What does that look like operationally? You have a new offensive coordinator, a new play calling head coach, a new defensive coordinator surrounded by experience. But those are the most important things beyond interesting stuff like Traylon Burks, Caleb Farley, or the sideshow element of it. Coming up next, Brian Callahan going to speak to the media. You will also hear from Rand Carthon and Anthony Robinson ahead of training camp as the Titans report today. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
He had a cleanup surgery in the offseason after the first couple weeks of our program, and had a little issue to clean up, and really that's what that is. And so he's just coming off of that. Should be good in a few days' time, but he'll start officially on the active PUP. So other than that, everyone else is cleared and healthy and ready to roll. So we're in a pretty good place health-wise. We'll have some guys that we manage over the course of training camp in terms of load and guys that are a little bit older and all that stuff. But other than that, we're healthy going into camp, which is where you want to be, and I'm excited to get rolling. So let it rip.
That cleanup surgery, shoulder surgery?
No. I did not clarify. Sorry, it was a knee cleanup. Yep.
And Stoney, I guess, no designation, just kind of monitor him throughout early?
Yeah, no designation for Stonehouse. He's felt really good in the last couple of weeks. I'm really confident in how he's punting. So the next step for a guy like him and from that injury rehab-wise is you got to start getting back into it. It's a mental thing on top of it. So he felt good enough to participate, and we had a long conversation with him this morning, and he's ready to roll. So he's going to take some reps and start getting back into it. It's sort of the last phase of his rehab. So excited about that. He looks good.
Guys, besides Jamal Adams, since the last time we got to talk to you, why did that fit make sense?
Oh, there's a lot of reasons, but the biggest one is that there's a mentality that Jamal brings when he plays. He fits the system that Denard needs. We needed some pieces at safety. He's really versatile. He can do a lot of different things. He's played some big nickel packages. He's played some dime linebacker. We'll explore those roles for him as camp gets going, but he's got a really versatile ability to help the defense in a lot of different ways. And then, the mentality that he plays with is unique and it's fun, and we need that on our defense as well. So excited to have him on board. Obviously, we haven't got a chance to take a look at him yet. It'll be my first time as a Titan. Obviously, I played against him for a couple of different times, and he's a real problem, and he's had battled some injuries as of late, but excited to have him here.
How much of the new addition
do you feel like there might be more hits coming?
I would say that we never really – there's a lot of places you never really feel set. Always looking to improve positions if there's people out there that can help us and improve our team. So I would never declare that we're set really just about anywhere. So we'll see. We'll see what that looks like in the next couple of weeks.
Is Carl Lawson healthy to your knowledge, and is he somebody that could maybe help you?
I don't know if he is, to be honest. I was with Carl in Cincinnati, so good player, good rusher. Not sure where he's at the moment.
Some guys, obviously, that probably need as much work as they can get, others that maybe don't need as much. How do you kind of structure that maybe in camp?
Yeah, I think the thing is they all need the football work when the pads come on, and you only get so many padded practices, and so there's a time and a place for all the guys to need work, and I think that even guys like Hop and Jeffrey get played a long time and been very successful players, they still need the work to get ready to play. NFL football on Sundays in the regular season. So we'll balance that. I mean, there's definitely guys that'll have a little bit of maybe a period off or some reps off or even a day off here and there as the camp goes along. But the way the schedules are nowadays and the way the camp is, it's a lot different than it used to be. So, you manage guys as they need it, but they also need the work too.
What's the latest with Devondre Sweat?
We'll go right.
Oh, go ahead, TD.
What's the latest with Devondre Sweat? I know coming back, conditioning and all that. How do you fare?
He looks good. He looks ready to roll. Don't expect any issues as we get started. He should be dressed and practicing and ready to play football.
By adding Adams, a guy who has an aggressive approach to what you've already added in the offseason with Snead and Awuzie, how much does that kind of transform just the mindset as well as the talent on the back?
That's a big part of it. It's just he's a different type of player, and he brings an edge and an attitude that, as you guys have all listened to Denard talk, that is important to him. And he's got great experience with Denard as it is. Obviously, Denard's coached him for a number of years, and that mentality, the edge that they play with, what he's looking for from our defensive backfield, I think we got a bunch of guys that now fit that. Between Cheeto and LJ, those are two really physical corners. They'll come up and hit, they tackle, and now you add a guy like Jamal in there with Hook in the back end and Roger as the nickel, and you got a pretty good group of physical presence in the secondary, and that's what we're looking for.
What do you want and kind of expect to see maybe the first few days, especially out of Will?
Yeah, Will's in a really good place. I'm excited about what he's going to play like. Excited to see it, but it's more just about playing on time. Is getting that timing back. The accuracy, the timing, and decision making are sort of the three things that you look for, especially early on, and try to get that developed as quickly as possible. Kind of get back into the flow, and so those would be what I'm looking for. And I think that having Will, the work that he put in, how he looks right now is exciting, and now we got to go do it.
How pleased were you to hear that he took guys to Cabo and gathered guys at Vanderbilt?
Yeah, it's great. That's what your quarterback, that should be doing. You should have a guy that's going to take a leadership role with the team and make sure that he's bringing guys with him. And that's a big part of leadership is bringing people along with you. And I thought he's done a fantastic job of setting the tone for those guys on offense. And putting the necessary work in to have a chance to be successful, and being able to have a leadership presence that, he probably this is the first time he's had since he was in college. So I'm excited about that. I think guys responded well to it.
We spoke in the spring about how during that portion of the offseason he was kind of focused on working through some things, changing the way that he approaches different elements of his game, kind of like being in the lab a little bit. Does that mentality change once you get to August? Do you want to see a significantly different approach to the way that he practices?
Significantly different, no, but it does change. I mean, that's an accurate observation, is that, now we're getting ready to go play, and a lot more of it is about making sure that our offense and our team is ready to go play football. And so there's a little bit less of the experimenting and the tweaking, and more about trying to really dial in and lock down the details and the expectations of the position and the job. And there's still some room for, some experimentation and but by this point, by the time we really get going, we need to be ready to play football, and it's less about those experimentations. Now, that's not to say that there's not work and technique and all those things over the course of an entire season, but the focus does change a little bit.
How quickly do you need to find your answers on the right side of the offensive line to have that group gel cohesively?
Those are going to be real. Those are real battles. I mean, those are real position battles, and they are open. So it's going to go probably the length of training camp. We'll probably declare at some point. They probably won't hear who's going to start there until the opening game, to be honest. And that's the fair way to do it, because I think we got players that are capable, guys that are going to compete, and I think the competition raises the level of performance. And so those will be open jobs. That's the competition. Who you see out there the first day may not be who you see there the second day, and they're going to rotate and have equal opportunity to claim that job. And then obviously once someone's play necessitates them getting more reps, then they'll get more reps. And but that's going to be fun. I'm excited about that battle. I think those guys are up to the task, and you're going to see a lot of those guys playing throughout the course of camp and in the preseason. So to answer the question directly about how quickly you'd like that to happen, I mean, sure, you'd love to have all five guys from the day one till the end of training camp together, but that's just not the reality of it. And we got good players that I think are competing for those spots. And if it takes till the week one, then it takes to week one.
I talked earlier about Will maybe bettering his kind of accuracy and completion percentage. What are some things that he can do, and what are maybe some things the staff can do to help him in that regard?
Yeah, for him as a quarterback, knowing where to go with the ball, know that the timing that it's required to be at the location are probably the two biggest things. Then you get down to the technique part, your footwork, your recognition of the coverage, all that stuff starts to play in. But the biggest thing is knowing where to go with the ball and knowing where to go at the timing that it's supposed to get there. And as far as coaching-wise, we can make that easy for him. We can make the reads easy. We can make the system manageable, digestible, and then hopefully he takes some mastery over that as well. And over time he'll get there. But I think that's the biggest thing is just knowing what to do and where to go is kind of the first part. He's got the ability to throw accurately. His mechanics and all those things, he's an accurate thrower. A lot more of accuracy is about throwing it on time and knowing when to let the ball go, where the window is, understanding location of defenders and where you're supposed to put the ball. So those are all things that we'll work on, probably every day for most of training camp. And I think he's improved a tremendous amount over the course of the offseason as well. So, again, I'm excited to see, what Will looks like as we get going.
You were doing a more extensive pre-practice stretch than we'd seen before. Is that something continues now?
Yeah.
And how much does Zach feel like that gets you guys within
Yeah,
that?
it's more of a dynamic movement warm up than just like an old school stretch. And a lot of that is prepping the body for movement. And Zach's really well researched. He spends a lot of time thinking about those things, adapting when new information comes to light and new things come into the warm-up procedure. But I think our players really responded to it well, and they liked it. They feel ready for practice. And it's more about getting ready to go full speed and burst than it is just to stretch like we're all used to stretching, So I feel like you probably see that around the league. A lot of places is there's more of a shift into this dynamic warm-up and movement-based warm-up as opposed to just the old school stretch lines.
You have to sacrifice a little bit of time elsewhere to trade off for what you've had to do?
Haven't yet. I mean, we'll, as we start getting some of these longer practices in training camp, we'll see. It'll be my first time doing it like that, but I don't think so. I mean, there's enough hours in the day and in the rules of the CBA that I don't think we'll have any issues. But yeah, it's a little bit longer than your traditional beginning of practice for sure.
As you put things together, how do you approach just like veteran days off, the management for guys, especially someone like Snead?
Yeah, we track some of it's injury related or coming off of injuries. That's a training staff. That's Todd and his crew kind of advising on when those guys might need to be pulled back. We also manage loads off of the GPS and a strength staff, so they manage all that and the sports science part on how many yards are running, how many full speed yards, what the accelerations and decelerations are. Those things all get factored in. Sometimes a guy will come, you'll end up in maybe the third period of practice and he'll have sort of redlined, if you will, on some of that GPS stuff. And Zach will come over and say, hey, he's done for the day, and then we shut him down. So there's a science part of it that's tracked. There's an injury part of it from the training room. And then sometimes it's just a good old-fashioned guy needs a break, But for the most part, we try to base as much as we can off of whatever data we've received and what our training staff sees in the rehab processes.
Is there a separate approach for Snead, given some of the
Yes.
ways he's been managed in the past?
Yeah, he'll be managed differently just because that's how he's, he managed to play almost every snap last year, and so that's ultimately the goal is be healthy and available on Sundays. And so to get him to that point, we have a program in place for him that we've consulted with him on and our trainers and doctors. And so we should be all good there.
Changing the kickoff.
Aside from the players that have injuries or are working through something, the team as a whole, when it comes to managing that ramp-up period, the physicality over the next couple weeks, how do you manage that line leading up into putting on the pads and then also joint practices down the line?
Yeah, the way that the CBA is spelled out now, we're under I think it's an 8-day acclimation period, which really ultimately it forces us to keep the process in a slow build. So the first day is today. We can't do any football. It's more of just a movement, conditioning, whatever that is. The second day, you get 75 minutes. The third day, you get 90, and then you get 90, and then you have to have a day off every 7 days. And so it sort of spells itself out. And then once that first day off hits, we'll be in our kind of our ramp period into full pads in our normal cadence throughout training camp. So you get into training camp based on the rules, and it's already there. It's almost like OTAs for a couple of days. There's no helmets, and we're in shorts and all that. So it's pretty easy to follow those rules, and the players, it's been negotiated, so we have to. But that kind of manages itself. And then when you get into camp, there's a part of you have to do hard things still. Like at practice, you have to be in pads. It has to be hard. It's got to be hot. You want all those things to happen, and that's part of building up your toughness and your resilience as a football team. And so that'll happen as we get into the pads. The joint practices are really fun. I love joint practices, and it's a good test because now you got guys going a little bit harder. You're not trying to take care of each other the same way that you do with your own team, and it's a little bit more competitive. And it's controlled still though, so you get all the benefits of competition without the game day where it's live and all the bullets are flying and those guys are at risk of injury. It's a little bit more controlled than that. So really excited to have those guys come out here and practice. It'll be fun.
With the rule change that's coming up and you're getting to implement that now in the kickoff, does it change at all the type of athletes that you put on kickoff return and kickoff cover rather than just having a bunch of guys who can run 50 yards and hit somebody head on?
I think it is going to change a little bit. I don't know for sure until we see a little more actual contact and live. Like the preseason games, I mean, obviously no one's going to show scheme, but you're going to get a feel for what it looks like. And My guess would be, yeah, there's going to be some changes in the body types across the league. I think it'll be interesting to follow the types of players that are going to be able to be effective in those roles, because it's very different, very, very different than anything we've seen before. So it makes me nervous, and I'm also excited to see what it looks like.
Framework in mind in terms of starters and how much you want them in this game, that game?
Yeah, those conversations we've kind of started between Rand and I, and working through what that's going to look like. I'll hesitate to say anything now because it could change. I don't want to pin myself down to one thing, but I do. Our team needs to play together. They need to play football together. We need to operate on offense and to operate on defense. We got a lot of new faces and new people here, so that's an important part of the preseason to me. So our starters will play. They'll play enough is probably the best way to put it. And then just philosophically, when we practice against the Seahawks for 2 days, they'll probably play less in that game because they'll get a bunch of heavy work for 2 days against them anyway in practice. But I do see our starters will probably play in all 3 games, and we'll see what that looks like lengthwise. But we need to play together and operate together and play some football before we get started.
How do you view the opportunity for snaps in the tight end room, especially with the 3 of Chig, Wiley, and Vanette?
Yeah, it's a room I'm excited about. I've really been impressed with Josh and Chig. Having Nick as a veteran presence, the guy that's done it for a long time, has been great. They're all going to get plenty of opportunities. I mean, it's not a room that is going to be dominated by one guy. Those guys are all going to help us. They all are going to have roles, and it allows us to be a little bit more multiple in a personnel grouping. So we can use all 3 of them. We can use 2 of them. We can use 1 of them. And they all have different skill sets. So it's sort of we're going to fill the tight end role with a lot of different players as opposed to maybe just 1 or 2 guys like some teams do. But they're also young too, then they're emerging. And so I'm excited to see what Josh does in training camp, how Chig comes along. So it's a fun group. I'm excited about them. They got great energy. And I think that they got a chance to really help our offense.
Talked about Mason and Malik competing. What's that look like maybe from a rep standpoint, how you handle them?
Yeah, it'll still be pretty split evenly. Obviously at some point, just like all position battles, you do have to make a decision. And a lot of that's going to be how they play. They're going to get opportunities to play in games, and that goes a long way in the evaluation process. But also just the performance in practice every day, the consistency. They'll both have equal opportunity to establish themselves as the backup quarterback, and I'm looking forward to that competition.
From a coach's standpoint, is it a little bit more unique in the running backs room, just with 2 similar backs in terms of deciding who will be the starter with Tajay and Tony?
Yeah, I don't really look at them as one starting over the other, truthfully. I think they both have really unique skills that we're going to find a way to use in a lot of different ways. Then that's the fun part for me right now is how are we going to deploy those guys? And maybe they both play at the same time. Maybe one gets hot and we let them run. Maybe one gets, maybe we just rotate back and forth. I don't know what that's going to look like yet. But they're both going to play quite a bit of football for us. And I don't view either one of them as a starter or a backup. They're both starting players to me. And then the rest of the running back room is going to be fun to see how that shakes out. I mean, we still need guys to contribute on special teams in the running back room, and we need a third back to step up. And there's some competition there kind of underneath the surface for that third back.
A little bit of a picture. Just what is your barometer for success in year 1? What are some specific goals you have for this team that you think you need to get?
Yeah, I try not to look too far ahead. But I would like to see an efficient offense, an offense that looks like we know what we're doing. The style of defense, you want guys to play within the scheme. You want to see the competitive nature, the attitude that we're looking for, the soundness of the scheme. I think that we're going to be a really competitive football team. And to put a number on wins or losses or expectations, I think a lot of it still remains to be seen. We have a lot of work to do to get to that point, and I'm excited about the work and the process to get there. And I want to see us get better every day ultimately. And it's a cliche and it's a coach speak answer. I understand that, but that's the truth, really. I mean, I haven't gone much past my meetings this afternoon. I have to get ready for. So I'll let you guys determine what success looks like.
Or as close as you thought you'd be to where you want to be when you took the job 9 months ago?
I do. I feel really good about where our team is at. I feel good about the players we've drafted. I feel good about the players we added in free agency. I feel good about the guys that we've have here in the locker room before I got here. So I think the team's in a good place. I love the way they work. I love their attitude. And so we're going to see what we're all about. And the best part about it is we get to put pads on and go play football and get to show people whether we're up to the task or not. And I think that our guys are, and I'm excited to see that.
Late signing for you guys is Jaron Christian.
What's that one more time?
It's another late signing for you guys was Jaron Christian. I think that's how you pronounce his name. What did you guys like about him, and is there any chance he gets a shot at right tackle? I know he's been more left than the.
No, yeah, those guys. The guys that we've added are all going to have opportunities. We've added some veteran tackles, guys that my dad's got some experience with as well, so that's always a plus. But guys that have played, I think that helps. They help guys that have been in the fire and know what it looks like, and have played football. So you need every lineman usually. Unfortunately, that's just kind of how the life is in the NFL. Is that you're going to have injuries, you're going to have guys that have to step up and play, and so we're trying to get as many of those guys that can help us as we can.
Right at all, or is he more strictly left? Or?
I'll say this: the best tackle that we have will play on the right, and whatever that looks like. If you're not starting right tackle, they got to still be able to play both. So if you're the swing or you're one of those backup tackles, they're going to play on both sides. So I wouldn't pin any of those guys down to one side at this point. As we get going more, you may see something settle in that way. But to start, they're going to be able to play both sides. Go ahead, Jerry.
Between putting in an offense and bringing along a young quarterback, and yet at the same time knowing that those same mistakes, if they happen in a game, could be incredibly costly. How do you manage that in training camp?
Yeah. That's a good question. The ability to test in practice for a quarterback, a throw, a tight window throw, maybe he wouldn't make in a game. You have to put a little bit of faith and trust in the quarterback that they're going to try some things in practice and it's encouraged to, with the understanding that maybe if that was a game, you might not make that throw. Now, the trust comes in is that if it really is a game, would you still make that throw? We don't know that, until you actually get out there and play. But I think Will's got a pretty good grasp, and Mason and Malik as well, about when it's appropriate to be more risky and more aggressive than maybe you might be in a normal game on a 1st and 10 than you are in a 7-on-7 period in practice. And so there is an experimentation that they're allowed. There's some freedom there, but we always coach it afterwards. Like that's good. I'm glad you decided to try that. Just understand that if this was 1st and 10 in the first quarter of the first game, we're probably going to check this ball down. And they work through. That's on them to work through. But we coach that part of it when they're in those positions.
Our coaching staffs here have awarded guys for off-season work. Do you recognize players for now or during the season?
We did not for the off-season part. It just wasn't. We were more concerned about just trying to get everything off the ground and new strength staff and new coaching staff and all that. There will be things in the season, players of the game and players of the week and all that will award. There's some parking spots out there that might be open that are really close to the door. That might be part of it. But, we will do those things when the season rolls around. We did not do any of that in the offseason, more focused on getting our systems off the ground and kind of every phase of the building.
And then you talked about how there's been so many things on your plate for the last 7 months or whatever it is. One, just how excited are you to be to this day to have a team here to start the season? And two, what was your message to them when you first met them?
Our first team meeting, official team meeting, is after this. So that'll be the messaging when I get there. But I'm I get to certain points in the summer and you can't wait to get started again, and it's always my favorite time of year is when training camp starts. Obviously there's optimism and things are good and it's exciting. It's a fun time of year. I love training camp. It's one of my favorite parts of football. So to be here and be the head coach of the Titans in my first year and my first training camp is pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie to you. And I'm excited to get going. And again, it's a pretty cool moment for me to be able to be up here talking about training camp. And it won't always be this exciting and this optimistic, but it is right now, and I'm going to enjoy it.
That's good. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
excited as the rest of us. Real quick, if you missed it, off the top, Brian Callahan told us that wide receiver Colton Dow will start training camp on the physically unable to perform list, as will Nicholas Petit-Frere, the offensive tackle, on the short-term PUP list, as it was a knee injury that NPF had worked on this offseason. He said everybody else, and that includes punter Ryan Stonehouse and defensive tackle Tavondre Sweat, should be good to go as the team hits the practice field tomorrow. When we come back, Titans GM Rand Carthon and assistant GM Anthony Robinson meet with the media. You can hear it live right here on 104.5 The Zone.
To what this whole thing is about, which is football and seeing the guys on the field. And like you said, made a lot of changes on the team and a lot of new guys. And this will be the first time all those guys have been together. So excited to see that.
With Levis taking over and actually being a starter, et cetera, how do you feel he's done as far as stepping forward, whether it's the trip to Cabo, putting the other passing camps and things together?
No, I think he was great. He's growing as a leader, finding his voice. Being empowered, just in terms of what the coaches allow him to do and what he's been asked to do. My only drawback from this offseason with him was that I didn't get invited to Cabo. So that was my only beef with Will and what he's done this offseason.
Are you done at safety with Adams, or are you still looking at other safeties to bring in?
I mean, we're looking at other people at all positions. We were just talking, about bringing some guys in just to kick some tires and, see where guys are. Our roster isn't set. Obviously, we don't have to have the roster set until September. So we're always looking to improve at every position.
Fits on this team, and maybe what role do you envision for him this year?
Oh, he's definitely fit. Obviously, it's the early part of his career, he was under Denard. Now, Denard wasn't the coordinator per se, but someone that he's very familiar with as well as Steve Jackson and Frank Bush. And so we have the opportunity to bring a guy in who's played at a very high level in this league, and we feel that, we keep him healthy and get him out there on the field. He can continue to make those plays. And, a guy like Hook, having Hook, still here gives us the versatility to bring guys in, whether it's a strong or a free, because Hook can play an interchangeable spot.
How big a concern is that recent health issue?
I mean, it's always a concern. That's one of the things when we're talking about bringing guys in, and A-Rob is, and BG, all those guys we're looking at the health. That's the main thing. There have been guys here that we've brought in to sign and just couldn't get to that point where we felt comfortable with the health. I think the way our deal is structured with them, it's a prove-it deal for us and a prove-it deal for him. And I know Jamal, I know how he's intrinsically wired. He wants to prove to the world and to everybody that he can stay healthy and still play at a high level. And it's our job, as a training staff with Todd and Matt and Mike and those guys to make sure he's out there on the field as much as possible.
How do you feel about the state of the pass rush right now, and how much can this defense maybe make up for any deficiencies there by blitzing?
I mean, it's just like anything else when you're playing the game of football, especially the pass rush. If you don't have, those fastballs off the edge, you got to find different ways to get there. I know one thing about Denard, our defense is going to be aggressive. Whether we had Lawrence Taylor and Pat Swillen rushing opposite of each other, we're going to still be aggressive and come after people. But it is what it is. Still got to improve the pass rush, whether that's on the edge, whether that's interior. However, we got the guys that we feel can cover people, and so I think that'll help the rush as well. But again, just something that we're always looking to improve.
I guess for both you and Anthony, I mean, you're talking about kicking tires on some players. Are there certain positions you want to see how things go in camp before deciding, hey, we need to go out and get this player at this position, that position? And when is that day? How long do you give a position group a chance to establish itself before you look around maybe somewhere else?
Yeah, I think, you're coming in and you feel good about the roster you've put together so far. And I think as you go through camp and you evaluate, and then you start making decisions from there, if you want to, maybe explore another position, bring some guys in, work them out. But I think as you go through it, training camp, make those decisions as you go.
And I'll follow that up. I've probably over the last week or two spoken to maybe 2 or 3 GMs around the league, just going through our rosters, where you're heavy, where you're light. There are going to be some teams and some guys that show up in the preseason. There are going to be some positions where we have, where we're heavy. So it's not just in terms of signing free agents. There are going to be trade opportunities. As of right now, we're sitting at the 7th spot in the claim order. Plan on taking advantage of that, being able to claim some guys that come free, at some point. So, like I said, we're always looking, and we're going to always do whatever we got to do to improve this team.
What are your thoughts on Sweat and where he is and how he's progressed through the offseason and your outlook for immediately with camp?
Yeah, so, I had a lot of conversations with Sweat this offseason. He's and it was more so about, making sure that when he comes back, his mind and his body's right. Because I think sometimes as a rookie, you come in and you don't realize how fast training camp comes. And then once it gets here, how long the season is. And just making sure that, he was doing the right things this offseason to make sure he comes back in the right mind space, and also physically. And then also just having general conversations about him. He was in Houston when the hurricane came through, and just making sure his family and him was okay.
Defensive line, aside from Jeff, even in years past, it's always been a group that's been deep and a group that's had a lot of, guys who have experience like Danico. You don't have as much of that this year. What's your evaluation of some of these up-and-coming guys like McClendon and Bohanna that maybe getting more of a shot this year?
Yeah, I mean, they get their opportunity. It's just like everything else. Like you said in the past, you've had a bunch of great D linemen, but even those guys at some point were young and had to prove themselves and earn a spot. And it's just the way the league rolls. It's I don't want to say this sounds bad, but like kind of out with the old, in with the new. These guys get their opportunity, and I know TK's up for the challenge. I know Big Q and Coburn, like all those guys, and Marlon Davison. These guys want opportunities, and they're going to have the opportunity to do so. I think all these guys grew this offseason. it's been good to see him run, going out there a little bit ago and seeing these guys move around, and you can tell it's a different group. I think even Jeff, like, it doesn't get talked about as much, but like Jeff's leadership, and the way he's like really, it was always like Jeff was the leader of the D-line group. And then now you feel Jeff is not only the leader of the D-line group and the defense, but the whole team. And you feel it and you see it. And, the way he goes is the way the group goes, just not in terms of on the field, but off the field as well, and how he handles his business. And so he set a great example for those guys so they have something to follow.
Brandon, do you feel like with the assistants that, your defensive coordinator hired and obviously Brian looked at, there's so much trust put in a lot of them with just even some of the guys they have connections with, that they're bringing them in, that they will continue to develop them or maybe make them a better player where they couldn't get as much out of there? Like, how much of that trust played into a part with those assistants?
No, I mean, our assistant coaches, you guys have heard me talk about it. Like, I'm excited to see these guys work and see these guys, get on the grass. Like, that's the exciting part. I believe these guys really coach ball. I've worked with a few of them. Some of them I admired from afar. But these guys are a talented group of dudes who know how to coach ball and know how to maximize, players' abilities. And, it's not just me hyping them up. You just look at their history and it says it, So for using relationships to get those guys, like we talked about earlier with Jamal, and, players come in with trust in coaches, right? And that helps, and it kind of, alleviates some of the initial wall to get through that the coaches would normally have to. And it puts the players in a position to be the purveyors of the message, for the coach. The coach, they know what the coach is expecting, and now they can come in the room and kind of let guys know, whether it's, a young guy getting ripped by a coach and not knowing how to respond, and, having the vet who's been with the coach, giving them a little pro tip on how to deal with it and handle that. Like, that helps us. And that allows, not only our position room, but the whole team to grow.
There was a lot of discussion just around where Traylon stood with you guys during the offseason, during the spring, and just with the guys you guys brought in, like Tyler and Calvin and whatnot. Just how have you seen him maybe handle all that to this point, and just kind of his approach up to this point?
I think Traylon's really grown up. He sent us a picture, of during the offseason, this little break here, showing his new physique. He came in and he really took to heart, the conversation that he had with myself and with Coach Callie. And he's completely bought in. I've, messaged with him, throughout the offseason, and I think he's in a really good spot. And, again, we added Tyler and we added Calvin. Obviously, D-Hop was here, but for a young guy like that, he has vets that he can learn from. And again, with him and his size and his speed and his explosiveness, and now, he can be an X, he can be a Z. Tyler's primary spot is probably going to be the F. You know what I mean? So I'm expecting, things from him and just his unselfishness. I know it was some talk about him taking gunner reps, but that was because he wanted to, and he wants to prove that he can stay healthy and play top level football.
You've been very patient, I guess, with Caleb Farley. I guess, do you feel like he's in a position to compete for a spot on this roster? And what's your message to him as he tries to stick?
It's like you said, man. Just be out there as much as you can. Obviously, in order to make this team, you have to be healthy and you have to be there. Really encouraged by Caleb and his commitment to the process, right? He's had every reason, whether it's on the field or off the field, to step away and take breaks, but he's dealt with a ton of adversity. He's taken it head on, and every day he shows up to work ready to go. So you can't do anything but respect that and admire that. But just like everybody else on the team, he's going to have to stay healthy and show that he earned a spot on this team.
A.J. Highsmith, Sam Somerville, long list of acquisitions and promotions. Can you maybe speak to the changes that have taken place this offseason under you and your staff, and maybe how that helps the team?
Yeah, I think it's just like the Rosh, and I'll let A-Rob go into it a little bit more, but just like how we treat the players, we're always looking to improve, our personnel department and get talented people in here, that's going to help us grow and help us identify players. Obviously, we all sit and talk and look at the first round picks, so you're not unearthing anyone there. Those guys kind of stand out. But, for us and for most teams and the teams that I've been a part of, hitting on the draft is you have to do that. But then being able to find those undrafted guys, that allow you to, steal depth, on the back end helps you as well. And it's not me that's out there, scouring the country looking for those guys. It's the people you mentioned, the AJs, the Sams, the Keenan Agnews, the Kalen Reeves. It's those guys that are out there doing it. So we need as much top level talent there as well.
Brian just talked about.
Hold on, let A-Rob go into a little bit more about those guys and their background and what they're going to do.
We're excited about AJ, Sam, and Keenan. AJ's got a unique background because he's in his 9 years in the business. He's had 5 in pro and 4 in college. Just recently college with the Buffalo Bills. So he'll work with Brian Gardner, John Salge. All those guys will work together, in that department. And then adding Sam, who's with the Bears for the last 12 years. Mainly in college. He's done the Southeast, and his recent role there was national. He would continue that same role with us here. And then Keenan Agnew, he was actually in camp with us last year as a mini camp trial guy. And then this past year, he was volunteering in Detroit. So we had an opportunity to hire him, once we finish up the draft. So we're excited about all those guys and adding them.
Are there built-in redundancies there, Rand? You've got a director of scouting, you've got a director of college scouting, if I'm not mistaken, you've got a director of pro scouting. Seems like there's a lot of overlap.
I wouldn't say redundancy is the right word. I'd say it's us getting another good player. It's like having 5 good receivers. There's nothing wrong with having 5 good receivers. We're not the only team in the league that has